Well, hello, everybody, again. And on this episode, we have to say it's Christmas Eve. And so I hope everyone is having a wonderful Christmas Eve and Merry Christmas, everybody. But we're so excited to have another writer interview with this year's Unbound Advent Devotional, Trans Advent, and excited to welcome the writer for Christmas Eve, Carla Robinson. Carla, thank you so much again for writing, and thank you for doing this interview with us. I just invite you to tell a little bit about yourself, whatever you want to share out there to the people.
The thing that I want to share more than anything else is the fact that I have covered a lot of ground in my life. Everything from the East Coast, serving in congregations there, the West Coast, serving in the church there, the middle of the country, serving in the church there. So I've seen a bunch of what this church looks like from many, many different denominational points of view as well. And so I come with a person with that kind of a broadness. And that's what I come thinking about, especially today as we move toward Christmas.
Yeah. Well, as you were writing, and everyone, again, the devotional's out, and Carla's devotional is so beautiful, and I so was blessed by it after I read it. But I wonder if you can tell a little bit about kind of like what you were thinking, like when you think about Christmas and when you think about writing for Christmas Eve and these particular scriptures that is on the lectionary this year. What kind of things come up for you for this time of year?
One of the things that comes up is actually something I did not get the chance to write about, but it's an important theme to me. And that is that the folks who are at the core of the Christmas story are all people on the margins. You know, they're
Mm,
they're people who are either pushed to the margins economically, they're pushed to the margins in terms of where they stand over against the great power of their time, and that even this kid is born homeless. So that's the thing that really jumps out at me about the whole cycle of the Christmas stories is that they really are for everyone who feels left out. As a trans woman, that feeling of being left out has been so much a part of my experience. And Christmas is, for me, God saying, nobody gets left out. Everybody's
mm.
in. So that's part of what I come in thinking today as I think about Christmas Eve and Christmas.
Yeah, and it's such a hard time for folk, I think. Sometimes the holiday season, sometimes as a queer person, I dread it sometimes just because of family dynamics and, it's such a hard thing when holidays are centered around kind of this biological family thing. And us as queer and trans people of people who have chosen family and we've kind of had to do that to survive and to be in community is such a hard time during the holidays. And I do know that is, yeah, that's such a comforting word to know that the Christmas story is one of people who were seen as people on the margins and the expectation. I appreciate there a little bit in your devotional speaking about the shepherds and how how outlandish in many ways that the angels would choose such a group of people. Shepherds were seen as, they're I always learned that they were kind of rowdy and they kind of caused a lot of chaos and they were very nomadic and they weren't the people that you wanted to be around. And people think shepherds are, you dress up and you think they're like, these wholesome people. And it's like, no, these people were out here by themselves. It was a lonely time. And so I really appreciate that. A part is that the story of Christmas is so kind of paradoxical to what we would have imagined it to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've sort of created around it this the the ultimate insider game. You
Mm,
talk about what happens in family. It's like, oh my goodness, the family thing comes and we feel either an obligation that we got to be there and then hit whatever crap is going to be thrown at us, or we
yeah,
feel, I don't want to be there because it's too painful. And then there's the sense that, oh, something's wrong with me because I'm not in that place. And so for me, Christmas sort of gives the opportunity to create new family. I had to do that, and so many of
mm,
us have had to. Um, it can be really, really hard, but the results can be joyful because you can actually find yourself in a community that wants you
yeah,
over against the community
yeah,
that says, we'd rather you not be here.
yeah, yeah. A community that feels like that if you weren't there, something, something would be missing. And for me, there is that tension of you want to be surrounded by people that want to be with you, and not necessarily always the people who want to challenge who you are, and who God created you to be. When I know the season of Christmas is, Jesus, God incarnate, walking with us and living the lives that we have lived. And so for me, that is such an important reminder, is that sometimes the holidays do erupt with tension, and we're kind of sitting here being like, well, what are we going to do? And it could just drain the whole kind of meaning of this time of year from us, because we're doing a lot of mental gymnastics to survive. So that's so appreciative, and a good reminder for me and for the people out there, during this time of year, is that maybe this year you listen to your body and say, this might be too much for me this time. Because I know this year, and not saying that things aren't always bad for our communities, but this year in particular has been rough when it comes
Yeah.
to state legislation and federal legislation that is targeting our trans siblings. And so I've been asking our writers, what would what would a word from you be to our trans siblings right now? Because during the holidays, it's already rough, but then you add the political atmosphere, you add everything on top of that, and it's just so much to carry, and it's so heavy. So I wonder what that word would be from you to the trans community.
For me, it would be lean into the community that's around you. Um, Now, I'll tell a story. Here in Washington State, we have a number of folks, trans, non-binary, two-spirit, who are coming to the state because it's a place where one can still get medical care, one can still get some resources, and so people are finding themselves here in a holiday situation apart from everything familiar, and they're
Mm,
they're looking for places of familiarity, and finding them in odd places. And so, I say, even if that community is two people, lean into that, because that's where you're going to find some of that spiritual rest. A community that says, I know you and I love you. The second thing that I would encourage people to do is pull on your traditions that have comforted you.
mm,
I again, I'll say a small story. For me, I remember my first Christmas pageant as a little kid, and of course, I'm associate, I'm identified male at birth, so I'm this little boy in this Christmas pageant, absolutely hating that I'm in this Christmas pageant. And
yeah.
last year, I had the opportunity to be in a Christmas pageant as an adult, as an angel. I
Oh,
made myself an angel. So I took that tradition and twisted it, and had
yeah.
that tradition fit me. And so this is one of the things I encourage our folks to do, is to take those things and make them fit you. I mean, my
Yeah.
goodness, anybody, if there is a group that knows how to take a garment, make it fit, it's us. And so I encourage
Yeah.
people to do that with those very traditions, and make them fit you, because ultimately, if the story is about someone born in a community of people who were marginalized and not fitting, then this story really is for you, and all the stuff
Yeah.
around it is for you. Sorry, I get excited,
Yeah.
you let me get
No,
going and you
that's great. I can do the same thing. And I think that's amazing. I was always fascinated by angels, and we just gender coded angels so much, but even in scripture and even in, historical context and all the things you read about angels, they were the most gender fluid characters in the biblical text or throughout any type of religion because
Yeah.
of the spirituality and kind of the other realms of of things that are way past our own societal constructs and norms. And it was so interesting when I was little, I was always fascinated by the angel. I was like, why can't we all be them? Like it was always the girls, and that never made sense because all the angels in the Bible had male coded names like Gabriel and Michael, like all these other things. And so it's such an interesting thing, but I think that's such a great illustration that, you got to say, I actually get something from our traditions, and they actually speak to me, and how that I interact with like the characters that most speak to me, or anything like that. Like I think that's so important right now because we've been conditioned not to be able to interact with scripture in a way um that brings us into the story. And
Uh-huh.
it's always we're just kind of sitting on the outside. And to me, that doesn't make a living word alive. Is that if we don't do that, um, the text just becomes dead and something we'll never be able to interact with. So I think that's so important for people to give themselves permission to say, you can find yourself in this, and it was
Uh-huh.
never meant to exclude you to begin with. So
Right.
yeah. Yeah, I can get going too. So, um, in a
No,
way.
that's the
But,
story to get you
Carla,
out.
yeah, but this has been such a gift. And again, everyone, this devotional, if you read it, you will be blessed. And I say that over and over again because we experience God in so many different ways. And trans people are are a divine gift to us, and I want people to see that and know that the ways in which the God is experienced in the lives of our trans siblings, it impacts all of us and makes us all better. So Carla, thank you so much for being a part of
Thank
this
you.
and for this interview. I've enjoyed getting to read your work and to getting to know you a little bit, and so thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute.
Yeah. Well, just to remind everybody that you can find Trans Advent at justiceunbound.org/Trans Advent. You can find all the devotionals. You can find a printable version. I suggest you do this in community, read these, discuss them. It's always a good way to get as much out of it as you can to do this in community. And there's also an Advent calendar attached that features the trans saints, people who have gone before us but have kind of blazed a trail for so many of us in our world, and that we should kind of evoke that sainthood towards them. And we believe in a cloud of witnesses, and we believe our ancestors are all around us, and so we really do want to lift up the trans saints and trans organizations that you should know about. So check it all out, and we will be back for another writer interview. So see you next time.